Welcome to the Being Becoming podcast. Together, we are being honest in conversations about thoughts we're having and books we're reading, in the hopes of becoming better, more able versions of our current selves. My name is Austin Stone, and I am delighted to introduce our first feature of habit.
Wait, let me leave and then give me like an introduction or something.
Today, we have our first feature of habit guest. And this is where we have all the background clapping dubbed in. Oh, Luke, thank you.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, what's your first and last name?
Oh, my name is Luke Hauer, or Lucas is my given name. I'm Logan's brother.
How's that?
And that's about it. That's all there is really to me.
We are really excited about this segment, the feature of habit, where we just get to have conversations and a bit of an interview format we got going on. But I am really excited to talk about some of your passions and some of your background. And
I'm excited to talk to you too. And thank you for having me on as the first guest of the show. And this will probably air in about a year from now. So if I say anything or do anything that doesn't hold up in a year from now, just remember, at the time it was okay, probably.
So, Luke, can we start? Can I ask you about your relationship to Hamilton and what that has been like in your life? Is that a good place to start here?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, we're here right now, so in Hamilton. So, obviously it's had some sort of impact on me. We moved here, we moved to Hamilton when I was about 15 years old. I'm 25 now, so that's
Is that
10
weird?
years.
10 years?
Yeah, that is weird. So about 10 years ago we moved here, and it was a very eye-opening experience. Mom, what are you talking about? Mom's off screen right now, giving Logan some sort of direction.
You're talking to me, Luke. You're talking to me.
Yeah, sorry. Anyways, so we moved here about 10 years ago, and it was a very eye-opening experience, kind of, living, in a place it's got a lot of history with, drug abuse, homelessness, prostitution. So at least the inner city, and so it was great to kind of come here and get to experience different people that we were accustomed to in our cozy little house in suburban North America, Midwest suburban home. So it was great to kind of step outside of that comfort zone and and actually get to interact with people that unfortunately society kind of turns their back on. And so it was I think that was kind of the eye-opening part, was realizing hey, these people are just like me. There's some they weren't born with a silver spoon, or it wasn't handed to them like some people are fortunate enough to it's just again, it comes down to I guess, chance, where you're, what you're born into. So, some people weren't given the luxuries that others were. And I think Hamilton was a good way to kind of see it firsthand, the hopelessness almost of poverty. And
so you spoke a little bit about it, but what surprised you about the people that you got to know and meet from living in inner city Hamilton?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing was the fact that they're, not that they are, you don't think they're normal people, but like I guess you just don't know how human they are. It's you know, once you put a face to something, it becomes, you know, real, or at least in my head it did. Like, you know, and these, you know, a lot of times they're just maybe one bad decision kind of got them falling down a downward spiral into, you know, the circumstances that they're in currently. And, you know, so it's like, and again, like, it could have just been one mistake or one accident, and it's, you know, we're all kind of one mistake away from being in the same situation. So it was kind of cool to, you know, I guess, see the humanity in poverty, because, you know, you don't really think about that too much, because you're not, unless you're directly affected by it. But, you know, again, coming from suburbia, you know, you don't tend to think about that stuff too much, but it becomes really real when you're living amongst people that, you know, are just trying to get by, you know, day to day.
This might not seem like it ties in, but trust me here. I know the binary of extrovert, introvert is overspoken about, but I do want to ask you where you feel like you might identify on that, you know, simple binary of extrovert, introvert.
I'm introverted, I would say. Pretty introverted. You know, I like to get out and interact with people every once in a while, but definitely, you know, like being by myself. Pretty antisocial, but yeah. So I guess to answer your question, I'm pretty introverted.
So I have kind of this running theory. And Logan knows this, I've been thinking a bit about this, this binary, and I definitely fall more on the extroverted side. And I have one sibling, my younger sister Abby is definitely an introvert as well, and I would come home from school and just was like, you're not a nice person if you don't want to talk to me after, like, why don't you want to talk to me? And it's been this process of me understanding people who are different from me, such is life, right? So I have this theory about introverts, and I'm discovering this superpower that introverts have. And it's this kind of, they can hold worlds within themselves, and I just think they have very strong analyzing power. And I think one of the best examples of this superpower are novelists. Octavia Butler, many science fiction writers, H.G. Wells, like other folks who can, Stephen King, other folks who just have these worlds within them, and they're often introverts, and they're often shy kids when they grow up. So I confess to you, Luke, that I have judged introverts, and I have misunderstood and misread them, and I did kind of want to mention the screenplay that you're working on, and it has to do.
Here we go. No,
it has to do with your creativity. And it has to do with your relationship with Hamilton. And you put it up on a Google Doc, and you didn't know I had access to it, and I went ahead and read through it.
Yeah. And to preface it, I'm just impressed that you were able to read it, because it was like formatted in the final draft, which is like where you like, you know, it's like a formatting, you know, for your screenplays and stuff like that. So it was formatted there, and when I copied it and backed it up to Google, kind of Google had its way with it in the Google Drive, and so so it was like kind of a mess. So I'm proud. Well, I'm just happy you read through the whole thing and were able to read through the whole thing.
Yeah. So Logan, your older brother, falls more on the extroverted side of things. And I was talking with him, and Hamilton has been a common topic of conversation. And I just have to say, the Hauers have been really inspiring to me, how they moved from, you know, a comfortable neighborhood, and they felt called by God, the Holy Spirit, to just be in Hamilton and to partner with ministries and just to be with people. And that has influenced my journey of moving to Chicago, and that can be another time of explaining all that of my story. But I say that to say that you have processed Hamilton in your own way. And when I read this screenplay, I was like, Luke got it. Like, Luke has internalized.
Wow.
He has understood the world of Hamilton. And you talked earlier about humanizing folks who we often think of as poor or just, I don't know, haven't made the right decisions, or it's easy to, even subconsciously, to fall into this less than understanding of people who are poor, because you want to think that you got what you have through your own effort and they got what they have through their own effort or lack thereof, and it just makes you feel a little bit better. But man,
it's definitely not the case.
Yes.
We're, it's just kind of like I said earlier, I'm going to try and be as articulate as possible throughout this interview. I'm not very much, but that's I think that was, what were we talking about?
We were talking about your screenplay.
I cut you off though.
No, you're fine.
I don't remember what I was going to say. So what was it about? Humanizing? I think it's a kind of an important, or I don't know, at least for me, like the thing about, it was first of all, great experience, like living out here I feel like that kind of I've never lived in poverty, but being surrounded by it kind of makes me feel more inclined to, or entitled is the wrong word, but I felt like I kind of could see where these people are coming from, and I think that better qualified me to write a story about, the homelessness and there's a lot of personal stuff in there that like I either witnessed or heard stories about that I kind of incorporated into the screenplay, and so but yeah, that was I don't know. I think it, well, of course it's going to be personal, it's about Hamilton, and I think the more you know a setting or a place, the better, and the more detailed, and the better you can visualize it in your head, and then I think that makes it easier to see on the page when you're writing, so I drove it to Hamilton a lot because I don't live there anymore, but I would drive in and look at these places, and then I want to shoot here, or I'd Google Maps it, and there what is it when you can like look at the it's like Street Google Maps, right? Street View, so I do that, and and it's and that helped a lot with like finding the places, real places, and places I could just like see this stuff happening, and it was kind of, I can't say it was inspired by a true story, but like one of the first things that happens in the movie or in the screenplay, is the main guy, Michelangelo. He's the main character we focus on. He steals, he smashes a car window and steals a bowling ball out of the back seat, and that was something that actually happened to my sister when we lived down here. We were gone. Went to visit our grandparents, and we got back, and the back seat of the car was smashed, and or the front passenger seat was smashed, and a bowling ball was missing out of the back seat. So that's kind of where the inspiration for the beginning came from.
What did this person do with this bowling ball? And your imagination goes from there.
Like what happened after this person stole the bowling ball out of the car, and so it kind of just, the screenplay just kind of, that gets the ball. Well, there's a couple things before that get the ball rolling, but then it just kind of keeps going and going and going until it can't anymore. And so that's. I mean, there's other stuff like that in the screenplay. Like I don't know if I can share too much, but there's one other. The other stuff's kind of like smaller stuff, and I don't know if this was in the version of the draft that was on there.
Okay.
But there's a conversation Michelangelo's walking down the street again, and he's approached by this older couple, and the lady asks him for meth, and that's again something that like happened to me. Like me and my dad are outside working on the air conditioning, a little window thing, and a lady comes up to me and said, like, hey, do you got any meth? Can I get meth? Like something like that. And so that, again, those things just stick out to you, and it's like, that I remember thinking about that when I was writing. I was like, this belongs somewhere in here, just like, because this is stuff that happens, and it's kind of crazy how open some things are here. Like you don't really picture people walking up to you on the street and asking you for meth, but that's just stuff that happens sometimes.
I really feel like you have destigmatized crime and drug addiction for yourself, and that has shown in the screenplay that you've written. And I was impressed by how you really worked at understanding the psychology of a drug addict, and you really humanized Michelangelo, and you captured his ego as well, I feel like. And like, I don't want to share more than what you've already shared, but to go back to the bowling ball, like, many people just see a crime and they think that's a shame and they leave it at that. But you were like, what did this dude do with the bowling ball? What did this, person do?
I guess that's.
And you humanized that situation, and I was really impressed by that. And
It's again, I'm kind of just stealing from real life a lot of the times. I think that's how it works though. Like you keep your ear, to the street, and then you're listening for people and conversation, and a lot of times it's really, really funny. So, or not always funny, but interesting. And then I think my mind just kind of goes to like, oh, that belongs somewhere in the screenplay, or, and I think, just being really attentive to just listening to the way people talk it was important for me for this, and because it's just really unfiltered, I feel like a lot of the times down here. There's been a lot of fights outside in the street, and so I try to like channel that emotion in the screenplay, like a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming, really high intensity stuff. And that's going on every day. So like, that's the thing too, that I think like, I don't want to romanticize like any of this stuff, but I think it makes, I don't want it to sound bad, but it makes really good, like interesting story, like just how high intensity, how dramatic everything can be. And I think it's really interesting. And again, it's important I think not to romanticize like because movies romanticize, they're very romantic, and I think it's important not to romanticize homelessness and addiction. But again, it's very fascinating to me, so that's why. And I've seen it a little bit to some extent. So
it doesn't seem like you're sensationalizing it, but you are giving gaze to something that you said before is often ignored, or written off,
or kind of it might be cliche, or a lot of times you see homelessness portrayed in movies or TV in one note, kind of someone sitting there with the sign, asking for money, and it's a real fight a lot of the times just to get through the day. And I think that's that's what I wanted to capture too, like an Odyssey-esque journey through a night, like in one person's kind of fight for survival.
So stop me if you don't want to share, but what is your title for this? Are you?
Oh yeah. No, it's C'est la vie, such is life. I think that was I forget how it came to me, but it just felt appropriate. I think the C'est la vie, the French, kind of juxtaposes the the ugly and the raw, you know, addiction and stuff like that. So I thought C'est la vie would be a interesting title. And then I just think such is life, that phrase is very fitting for a story like this, you know. Such is life.
Do you feel like the American version of that saying is "It is what it is"?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, it's it is what it is, and I think I think that was just like, I forget how I even thought of it, but it was like, oh yeah, that'll definitely work for the title of this movie, because the movie changed a lot. I started writing 2 years ago. And I would write almost every day, and I think I got 60 pages into a draft, and then it was like it was one of the first attempts I had made of writing like a full-length screenplay, and so it was like this is kind of just cliche after, you know, it was just like a lot of like trying to make things work that were just like overplayed or like overused, and you know, and it was like, it just was like kind of stale. So I went back to the drawing board and kind of, you know, used some of the elements I used in the first, you know, draft into the second draft, and that's when I think the title came about. And but yeah, and then things weren't complete yet, and but that was like that was like 98 pages, so it was like a full-length feature movie, and so that was exciting 2 years ago. It was terrible, but it was there, you know, and it's like raw form.
Yeah.
Some big changes happened. I think the central character's name was Chris at first, and I just wasn't in love with that, and then I came upon the name Michelangelo and was like, oh, that's perfect. That feels like the character, you know. And so, but again, a lot of changes. So yeah, the script 2 years ago was nothing like, you know, the one I'm rewriting it after over 2 years. I've slowly been rewriting, and I'm not someone that can write every day anymore. I don't know. I don't know how some other screenwriters do it, but I just kind of attack it slowly, and you know, I'll write when inspiration strikes, and usually that'll last for a couple days, and then I'll take my time until, you know, my mind's always going though, and so, you know, once the ideas start flowing. And so so now it's I guess it's technically the third draft, like complete rewrite. So, but there's been a lot of changes over the years, and so almost done with it. So once I'm done with it, then you know, the wheels will be in motion, I guess. But I'm still just taking my time with it. I got about 10 pages left, but we'll see.
What do you feel like it is about this art form that fits your creative flow?
That's a good question. I've always liked movies, and I think for me at least, I think just developing that love for making videos early on. Like, I started pretty much how everyone starts, with like Lego stop motion stuff. Yes. And so I think it kind of, you know, almost, you know, I liked to draw when I was younger, but I think, you know, when I was 10 or 11 and started like making these videos, I think that's kind of when the creativity and then the, you know, the canvas of film, like, kind of, they met. And you know, it was kind of just how, since, you know, 10 or 11, that's been my primary outlet for filming, or for creativity. Is inspiration. Film. And so I don't know how that all came about, but something with just being a visual person, I'm sure is what attracts me to film. And then, but again, like, I'm not interested in TV either, so I think it is just the it is a great form, I think, of, the length, hour and a half, 2 hours. I think, it's, and then it's, much more, I don't know, you get to the meat, I feel like, in film a lot quicker than in television sometimes, or, it just depends on the show, but,
Wow.
or the, sitcom, whatever you have it. So I just think film's always been my thing, I guess.
What do you think a worthwhile film does?
How do you mean? Like how?
So if there's a worthwhile film that you saw, what do you think a good film does?
Okay, yeah. So for me, I have my criteria. I like to rank films or rate films, and I usually only rate 10 out of 10, and I'll give a film a 10 out of 10 if I feel something. So if it emotionally affects me during the movie, if I'm really engaged, and then it makes me feel something, something I can take with me into life, then that's that's kind of how I, judge my films. So emotional impact, whether it's visually stunning or just, the subject matter is something that jumps out at me, and the themes that a movie carries with it, things like that. That's kind of how, if it makes me, essentially, if it makes me feel something, and there's something to take with it, to take from it. That's usually when it gets the 10 out of 10. And I think a lot of those movies, I think film is just, it's good at helping you understand other people. Empathy, film can teach empathy, I think, a lot of the times. And I mean, don't get me wrong, film's also for entertainment, just like everything else, and it's good for that too. But I think you can take away some very important lessons, and a lot of the time it's empathy for other people and what they're going through, or what they're moving towards, things like that.
Wow. Do you think you could give an example on the spot here to apply your criteria?
Hold on. Yeah, let me think. I instantly try and think of something sad, and I don't know why. I think that's because, or I don't want to do a horror movie because I'm not a big fan of horror, but again, that's something that's an not easy emotion. It's hard to do a good horror movie, but I think a lot of times horror is good at creating emotion just because,
it's extreme.
It's extreme. It's in your face. Let me try and think of a movie. Even a recent movie. Okay, so I saw a movie maybe a month or two ago, and it was called The Worst Person in the World, and it's a new film, newer. It came out this year, I think. Wait. So this is going to be 2023. So it came out in 2022 /2021, and I think it was a movie about a woman kind of going through her life, seasons of life, changes, and all the pain and the joy and, the regrets that kind of come with growing up. And so I think it was I gave it a 10 out of 10 because it was something that made me kind of think about my own life, how I change, how we go through these seasons. And, even though I'm not a female, and I'm not, it was a foreign film, so, I can't relate with the character too much on that level, but I think we all can relate to trying to grow and kind of these questions and these doubts that we have, and am I a good person? Am I doing the right thing? It's stuff we can all relate to, and so I think, I think film's really good at not only helping you see things from another perspective, but just kind of giving you ideas about, you know, life and so I think film's powerful in that way, and like any sort of art can be powerful.
So I do enjoy hearing your thoughts on film and the power and the meaning that you feel like it has.
And I'm not doing it justice, by the way, but just know it holds a lot of value to me. I just can't articulate it.
Don't say that about yourself. Okay. So I do have some interest in philosophy. I do enjoy talking about philosophy, and I kind of feel like the best of philosophy might have migrated into contemporary good filmmaking.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of integration between philosophy and film, and maybe not so much, but I'm not going to say not in mainstream or like blockbuster. There is, I think it can be found, you know, on any level of film, whether it be independent or big production, studio, blockbuster.
Or maybe film reflects the current philosophy, and the current, and film and society also affects philosophy, so it's kind of a...
Art imitates life, as they say. A professor told me once that film holds up a mirror to society. That's the way he described it anyways, and I think that's really true.
Oh, that's perfect for my next question. I don't know how much you like big picture questions, but...
Let's hear it.
Given all the films that you've enjoyed and the emotion you feel like comes from it nowadays, what do you feel like this is really open-ended. What do you feel like is the kind of the philosophy of our society right now based off of your experience of film?
That is a good question. I'm gonna say I think existentialism's a big thing right now in film.
Yeah.
And very like abstract, like I want to say like kind of almost metaphysical, you know, just like there's a lot of searching, I feel like, in movies in the modern day, and then dealing with these ideas of you know, purpose, fate, destiny, worth. Kind of just like these, you know, questions we've been asking ourselves, you know, for forever. I think, you know, a lot of movies nowadays are dealing with, you know, kind of that where do I fit in, you know, into this whole thing? And I think, you know, that's at least that's the pattern I've been noticing. A lot of like kind of, you know, a lot of up here, the mind, a lot of stuff with that, and just...
So post-structuralism has kind of thrown us into a, not a sea of nothingness, but like pluralism. Like, so I think a lot of the pre-modern age was very structured, you know. Almost everyone believed that there was a God, and you know, in Europe, Catholicism was very popular, and there wasn't really atheism that was around. And now we've kind of gone through the Enlightenment. We've now kind of gone through the Romantic age, trying to recover from, you know, the heaviness of logic and reason. And now we're experiencing existentialism, which I would like to hear your working definition of that. But it's kind of like people want to know what it feels to be alive.
Yeah. Find like meaning.
If it's not defined by God anymore, how do we exist?
Like, do we make our own? Like, you know, is there like you know, like are things predetermined? Do we make our own, you know, outcome? Like, so that I think that's kind of because we have in a sense, you know, and again, movies are about a million different things, but I think a lot of the more, not independent, but like, you know, I don't know, it's kind of confusing now how movies work, you know, it's, there's blockbusters. Sorry, hold on, one sec. Got a granola bar stuck in my mouth. there's some blockbusters, and I don't want to sound like I'm a film expert because I'm not, but and then there's more, independent companies coming up, and more, there's just a lot of stuff out there now. There's a lot of anything you want kind of at your fingertips, especially with like video on demand and things like that, and streaming, and we still go to the movies and stuff, but like there's so much stuff gets made, and so there's really no end to what film can be.
Take me off the path if you don't like this direction, but do you feel like the quality of self-proclaimed Christian films is automatically lower?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you say yes to that question. Yeah. Why is that? Why do you, as a film critic yourself, why do you feel that way?
I think that Christian films do a terrible job at imitating life. It's very refined and very pure, and I don't think life is pure and refined. I think it's very ugly, like at times, and so I think like for me, like I've never seen, like, as someone that, believes in God, and I don't see anything inherently wrong with portraying like life in a certain way. Like art is freedom, and I don't think movies that swear, movies that are violent, or I don't see that being to a certain extent being anti-God or anti-Christian, because I think those are since the beginning of time, we've been dealing with these things, that there are things that are very human, and I think a lot of the times that these Christian movies like to cover that stuff up and sugarcoat things, and then they like to give you the movies in general tend to like to give you a happy ending or wrap everything up. It's a big selling point. We like it when it ends neatly, and you don't have to think about things. But yeah, I think so that's my experience. Again, I haven't seen every Christian film out there, but I don't in my mind, I think my film's a little rough and it's brute and ugly, but I think I wouldn't be embarrassed to like stand behind it.
Yeah. So I feel like Christian films is a good example of evangelical Christianity wrestling with post-structuralism. So I'm trying not to sound smart, but I'm totally going to try to break it down here.
Break it down.
I do think existentialism, nihilism, which is like, nihilism is like, I don't think anything matters.
Yeah, the belief in nothing.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to deconstruct everything that's hurt you, that's kind of what you're left with sometimes.
Yeah, I think at least for me, nihilism is something I think it's something that can make sense. It's, if you believe in nothing, it's almost easier a lot of the times to deal with things. Not saying I'm a proponent of nihilism or anything like that, but at least I want to say I kind of see, I can understand sometimes,
where that's
that
coming
approach,
from.
Yeah.
So lots of evangelical Christianity the reaction to that is to kind of throw away any existential question, any wonderings about nihilism. How do we deal with when I feel like there might not be nothing? How do I deal with my doubt? And these Christian films are often like, boom, here it is, here's the answer. You don't actually even need to ask the question because we have the answers right here.
It's easy for you. And I don't think that's very accurate to life. So I think sometimes these films can be disheartening because it gives you an accurate portrayal of what Christianity is, because these movies often end so perfectly, and I think that leaves a lot to, so if your life doesn't end up that way, it leaves a lot of room for doubt.
Yeah. Are they not trying to give hope though?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I get the hope. And I think hope's something that's, that's good, but yeah, at least for me, I don't like how the Christian films always have that look, and that they leave that like taste in your mouth. I don't know if it's like, not saying that they're all bad, but at least I don't get the distinction between Christian films and
it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's weird. I think that they can exist, or if you're a Christian, you can't see other films. I think there's room. I don't know. I think one of my biggest problems with modern day Christianity is like how separate we like to be from the world, and it's like because we're not a part of the world, but we like imitate the world. We just like put our own little fun, holy spin on it, but it still looks just like the world. But then we like to hold ourselves higher than the other people that don't believe what we believe or don't live the way we live, and so I think that's why I always have kind of I'm not trying to hate on any movies, but that's just my feeling.
They seem to have good intentions, good
motives. There's always good intention behind it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with liking those movies, Mom. But I've always been someone that's gravitated towards
I feel it.
I like any and all movies, but I just I have never had a problem with watching difficult subject matter.
So, does hope work when you haven't really shown a need for it? So, I want to talk a bit about Lamentations is a book in the Old Testament where the prophet Jeremiah, a prophet for Israel, is trying to turn them around. And this is kind of, I think, where we find Jeremiah in a hopeless spot because the people he's trying to warn, the people he's trying to bring back to their God are just ignoring the commandments. They're just not following God. They're following their own path, and he's hopeless. And Lamentations is just filled with these hopeless statements, and you can feel the existentialism, if you could use that word. Like you could feel the hurt, the pain, the despair. But then once you get to, I forget what chapter it was, but once you get to this 3-verse section of hope, you feel it. You feel the hope. But I will still yet have faith. I will still yet have hope in God. And I feel like that's a better approach to take. Instead of being afraid of the existentialism, instead of being afraid of the despair, you can go there. You can stare into the abyss. If you stare long enough, I think Jesus wants to prove himself there.
Yeah, I think that was a good point you made about because I think sometimes the movies tend to, like I said, sugarcoat things so they don't get real with you. In the way that film is meant to be real with you, and so like again, like you said, how can there really be a need for hope when you haven't shown a real need for hope? I like that.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I try not to go over people's heads. Sometimes I do that too often. What are some other things you think about outside of your screenplay?
Nothing. No.
It takes up a lot of the space.
It does. But again, I think my problem is I'll write stuff down, but I try to remember a lot of it, and so it takes up a lot of data in my brain and storage. So
processing power.
Yeah, but I'm able to there's times where it's more, significant than others, and I'm like, okay, I really gotta. Once those ideas start piling up, it's like, okay, I think I gotta start writing now, but I'm able to turn it off. Like right now, I've been pretty inactive writing, and there's no that's because of I'm just not gonna rush it. Whenever I'm ready to write, I'll finish it. But yeah, so other things are I like reading. That's something I got into last year. I think it's something that helps settle my brain at night when it can't be settled. So reading something good. That's about reading, and then doing whatever Amanda, my wife, wants to do. That's kind of how my brain works.
Skateboarding, taking a back seat.
Oh yeah, oh man, unfortunately for now. But I forgot. Skateboarding is just a good way to release a lot of the stress of life, and I haven't done that in a while because I'm lazy. But yeah, good exercise and a good relaxation tool for me.
Do any of those things feel like do you feel like you can go to one of those things dependably to get more creative thoughts going, or how does that work for you? I need to do this.
Yeah, I think, like reading and watching movies opens up doors for my creativity. And a lot, I've noticed, at least for me, a lot of a film is, a lot of films are inspired by other films, or directors are inspired by other directors or movies that they've seen. And so there's a lot of inspiration from other films that are brought into new films. And so I think watching a lot definitely helps me, with my inspiration. And, there's some great stuff out there. There's a lot of great, movies I watched to help inspire me for the C'est La Vie, and Cassavetes is a director, very inspired by kind of one of the originator of American independent cinema.
Wow.
And so he's definitely a big inspiration for, I think, everyone that's looking to make movies. And modern day guys, the Safdie brothers, two directors that do a lot of good work, and a lot of they're able to capture life as it is, I think, very well. And but also they're great at realism, which is something that I'm very attracted to. In film, they're great at blending realism with kind of heightened melodrama, maybe kind of making realism very dramatic in a way that it isn't always. And so they're very inspirational to me. I think Good Times, one of the best movies I've ever seen. And so some people beg to differ, but it's great. And I think, so I think, a lot of realism. Big realism guy. Slice of life stuff, I think that's super interesting, and a lot of the times it's, people won't watch because it's boring or whatnot. But I think there's a lot to gain from just looking at life in a raw, honest way that film is able to do. And maybe not blockbusters, but these smaller films.
I like that heightened melodrama. When I read the rough draft of your screenplay, I was like, I don't think I've ever seen a movie like this. Maybe I just haven't run across any of the directors you suggested, but sometimes I have watched some films that I think really go heavy on trying to show what it's like to experience something, that it becomes boring.
Yeah.
So how do you feel like a director does heighten a normal everyday life and does justice to like existentialism and humanity.
Yeah. So for me, I at least my own experience and the one screenplay that I've written, it kind of for a while, I think I just wanted it kind of to be like as real as it could be. But like 2 years ago, like that was when I was really getting into like some other directors like Mike Lee, who makes a lot of great movies. And some of the other like smaller stuff that I wasn't exposed to growing up, and so I think that kind of like in my mind when I first wrote it, I was like, all right, it's got to be as real as possible, and now like where I'm at now, I'm kind of blending these putting the more dramatic elements, at least in my head, I'm visualizing more dramatic elements like mixed in, like camera movements, colors, like things like
wow.
that work.
Tools in your toolbox.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that really helps. Or just like in it again, it's just like over time, and taking my time with writing. It's allowed me to get these ideas and kind of change, my style of directing. That's all in my head at this point. But so yeah, I think it's really. I forget the question, but yeah.
No, that was wonderful. There are a lot of common themes in popular stories.
Yeah.
A lot of movies pull from these popular themes. It seems to me that you might write something related to like a hero kind of story, but I feel like not everyone's life feels like a hero story. So how might you connect with this human need for a story without the common
that's
good endings?
I think what's cool or what you can do with film is like kind of what I'm trying to do with this movie is take like a normal situation and make it like it's very like it's like a journey, like the character's going on like a journey, which is very like like a traditional thing that happens in a lot of movies, but it doesn't look like it does in a lot of other movies. It's like he's it's like the journey looks different. I think there's ways you can incorporate traditional elements of not just movies but of storytelling and things of that nature, and like because quests and stuff like that, those have been around for a long time, and so like I think there's ways to take those and blend them with like more of a realistic approach to because there's no like we don't live in an age of knights and dragons and stuff like that. Like it's more of a realistic kind of a modern day, what might it be like like a medieval poem or something like that. It's not that dramatic. That wasn't my intention behind the writing, but like I think it's kind of cool that you can kind of blend or take bits and pieces of things. And for a long time, I was studying like story structure and stuff for movies and plot points and this has to happen and this. There's a lot of structure I think in that they try and teach in like traditional filmmaking, but I kind of like after I started discovering more art house, different approaches to cinema, I kind of tossed that out the window. So so when I wrote this, it was just kind of like whatever happens, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't work for some people. It's like this is how it works for me, like and you can't tell me I'm wrong because this is what I made, and so that's the thing. Like I mean, obviously I'm open to corrections, but like like in my mind, this is just I can see it in my mind, so that's why it feels right.
It's what you've been led to.
Yeah.
Do you feel like self-realization is a common theme in films, and is this something that you're doing for Michelangelo in your screenplay? Are you trying to show a journey of self-realization?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Yeah, I think that is a kind of a common theme, and there's so I don't want to give away too much.
Sorry.
There's a great no. It's I'm saying that to myself. So there is a little bit of realization that happens towards the end that I'm writing right now, and it's very heavily inspired by Crime and Punishment. Kind of after the crime is committed, the punishment. It's a mentally inflicted, psychological. And so I think there's a bit of that in the story that kind of just came about organically that I wouldn't have ever written if I hadn't read the book Crime and Punishment. So it kind of gave me the idea of like, it's not the theme of the movie, but there's elements of that in the movie of punishment, kind of psychological punishment. And so I think I wouldn't say there's a lot of growth for Michelangelo, and I think that kind of the realism talking in the film, like we don't always get that growth. And so, but I think there are things happening to Michelangelo that are affecting him internally. So, I think that's cool. And everyone should read, and it'll help you write your movie.
When I was reading your screenplay, I felt like I could see the dreariness of Michelangelo's situation and his life.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so creative of you to name him Michelangelo. So it's like this very normal, like dreary, despairing situation, but he's got this very like
beautiful, romantic name.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and then the title of the is French. So it's almost like you're, hey, pay attention. I'm gonna put a lens on this dreary part of town that you normally drive by on the highway.
That you don't really. Yeah, you'll stay over in your area and you'll leave these people over here in their area. And I think, I mean, we've met. They're like a lot of the names come from people we've like met. So like I didn't get the name from. There's someone we knew named Michelangelo, and that's not where I got the name from. But it was funny to remember that. And I think that's a very like. So it's like, so in my mind, it was like, oh, that name works because there's somebody in similar circumstances that had the same name. So it's like, kind of like, that's like, it's not like, oh, that would never happen. Like, it's like, there was like, so I think names are, for me at least, when I was writing, a very important part that helped me like believe the character. Made me feel, okay, this character it feels real to me. And so, a lot of the names are like, have been adapted from people we've met or things like that. And so, names are, I don't know, names are important, I feel like, and at least for me, it helped me visualize the character. And
it means a lot that you would, especially as an introvert, someone to just share what you've been working on, and kind of be open to it.
Well, I haven't talked about it. Yeah, so if it sounds rough, it's because I've never talked about it, and I have a hard time expressing myself through through my speech. So, but that's
your superpower of an introvert. You don't have to be a good conversationalist necessarily.
I think being able to write is I don't know if I can write well or not, but I can write. I try to make it kind of as real as possible. So I feel like that helps, And it helped a lot when you read it. That like somebody else was able to understand what I was writing, because no one had read the screenplay, so I'm like, maybe this just makes sense to me, and so it was validating. Especially after so long. But you kind of like live with these characters and this stuff in your head, and it feels real in your mind. But
I've always wondered about that,
Yeah.
like really serious novelists, like
yeah,
what's
I
that
don't know,
like? You
yeah.
have these characters like they almost like don't feel like it's from their own brain. It's like
Yeah.
not that it's a personality, but like it's a creation of
Yeah,
theirs, and it's almost autonomous in its own way.
It's amazing that that filmmakers, novelists are able to create such characters with all sorts of depth, and hopefully maybe one day I can, and but again, this is just kind of like hopefully a starting point for me, and I like the idea of I think I just like the idea of making movies, and so whether this hopefully this comes to fruition, but if it doesn't, I'm not gonna say if it doesn't, because I'll end up making it either way.
Yeah.
But I think I'll keep making movies, whatever, regardless of the outcome of the first one, just because I think it's something I feel drawn to. It's something that I feel like it's something drawn to is a good way to describe it. Something that I'm compelled to do, and so if I ever make it to Hollywood or not, that doesn't matter. I'll keep making movies.
Good.
Yeah.
That's not your measurement of a success.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
Yeah. So I think movies are interesting, whether or not they're made in Hollywood or in Hamilton. So
Right on.
yeah, there's a lot to be learned from everywhere.
Luke Hauer, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I hope I can come on again.